even people in England don't appreciate the British government. It's a pretty worldwide belief that the British government serves nobody.
We got funding from this music body who gives funding for people to tour around America. Tory minister Kemi Badenoch overreached and withdrew the funding. Obviously, whenever you censor people, it's the best publicity.
Sectarianism was created by the government in order to create a divide between the Catholics and the Protestants up north. This isn't something that was deeply ingrained in us for thousands of years or whatever. People had this idea around the world that it was people from Belfast that were out marching, and I'm sure there was, the one with the Irish flags. They were all coming up from Dublin. Where was this influx of people from Dublin coming up with the tricolour during the Troubles?
Probably anyone over 60 should be banned from Facebook. I think they can't fucking tell the difference between fact and fiction anymore.
The fact that English people are coming to our gigs now and paying, it's they're unwillingly paying back reparations.
Fuck.
What's happening? Cards of Gale, Moby Bap,
DJ Proby.
And I'm Machara. Together we're KNEECAP.
For the film, you've already won an Audience Award at Sundance.
Thank you.
You've been short. You've won an Oscar as well. This is going out next year. So you've been nominated, haven't you, from IFTA to be the international film for Ireland this year.
Mm-hmm.
Just how does it feel being lads that you are gigging around the UK and Ireland to just go from gigging music to being an international film crew? Movie star. Yeah.
We did the film. Obviously, we stuck to the terminology, the local terminology. We kept it colloquial. We didn't change anything for anybody outside of Belfast, never mind Ireland. So we never actually expected anyone to understand what the fuck we're talking about. And I think most of the time in America, I don't think they do know what we're talking about. I've seen someone
in English.
I've seen someone asking for subtitles, not only for the Irish but for English as well. But they were still laughing. So I mean, it's a sign of a good movie.
So a lot of people think we're speaking English. They think that the Irish is English with a spud in your mouth or something, but it's not. And it's very surreal as well. We've got big enough heads, but seeing your head on a big 50-foot screen or on the side of a bus or on a big banner outside a cinema is.
And your arse is there.
Still.
Your arse is big enough.
And people in Belfast are sick of us now.
Yeah, so whenever you see your arse on a big screen, especially when you haven't picked the dingleberries out of it yet, it's.
Well, you've learned from that, I suppose, haven't you?
Yeah.
Too late now.
Too late to learn.
Practice.
But with that, you're talking about how it's received internationally, but I guess in the UK as well, given that the film itself is about the north of Ireland, about the it's like ceasefire babies living through the way that the north has kind of established itself in the UK now, and how you kind of have to navigate identity and culture and these kinds of things. How do you think like the English audience receives that when you have kind of aimed it towards, you say, Belfast specific, but it's now got this international appeal, but particularly in the UK, given that they're kind of like the butt of the joke almost. How do you think how does that land with you, that people here have received it so well so far?
I feel like even people in England don't appreciate the British government. I feel like it's a pretty worldwide belief that the British government serves nobody, especially the Tory government. The British government in general have had an extra 100 years in the north, like from 1921, from partition. It's not like they've had a wee trial run of 5 years and we'll see how you get on. There was 100 years there, and obviously have failed the Irish people, have failed English, Scotland, Wales, and we're just saying it's time for an alternative now, and we're unapologetically in support of United Ireland, but only down to the fact that Britain have made a shambles of it.
And you get the NHS as well. So if we have a United Ireland, we'll keep the NHS. Because down south you have to pay for your bins and stuff, so we're going to amalgamate the best of the both worlds, and everybody will be welcome. And it's not like anybody's going to get ousted. And that's the fear up north, that people have that fear that because they were maybe planted over here 500, 600 years ago, and if you've lived in a country for 500, 600 years, you have a right to say that you're Irish, British, you know. So that's not what the future holds for people in the north. Everybody's going to be welcome, and everybody will benefit from it. And both systems will be scrapped, and a new system will be brought in.
Yeah, so that was the point about why I feel like it's going down well over here as well, is because people relate to that. People relate to the fact that the government doesn't serve them. I feel like that's why it's going down. That's kind of the message of what's behind a lot of the songs that we do and stuff.
Yeah, it's all about identity. I mean, that's the core element of this movie. And I think, like, I'm not a massive supporter of what they call the United Kingdom, but from the outside looking in, the best part of it is how diverse it is. And if you go to Wales, Scotland, or you come to London now, how multicultural, how there's all different cultures here. And the movie represents that there, because it comes down to people having the opportunity to portray their own identity, to express their culture and language, and for other people to respect that and to have that opportunity. So I think that's when we come here to London or anywhere else on these isles or Scotland and Wales, that it resonates with people not only from Celtic cultures but from all cultures all around the world, because it's about them having the opportunity to express themselves, having the spaces and feeling safe to express their culture. So I think when we come here that we get that great reception because of that reason.
On that expression of culture, obviously a big theme of the film, of you're a band first and foremost. It's the beginning of your journey as a trio. It's striking to see in the film how either orange or green, establishment or not, everyone was coming for you at the beginning. Everyone was trying to shut you down at the beginning, apart from your fans, your families, your friends.
Our family, yeah.
You know, why do you think you were such a threat to the establishment in the north, in the Republic, the way RTE, for example, were banning you from the radio waves, that kind of thing, and then the UK reception as well early on?
Well, all those kind of upper middle class people and the media outlets as well, they have a lot to lose, you know, from people talking as openly as we're talking about this stuff. We're challenging a lot of it and they feel threatened by it, you know, so they try and shut it down. And it's the same thing happened we got funding from this music body who gives funding for people to tour around America, and then Tory minister Kemi Badenoch overreached and withdrew the funding, you know, and they weren't going to say anything about it, but we found out through the grapevine that it had happened, and now we're taking the British government to court. I think they just thought, let's just try and quiet them by censoring them, but obviously whenever you censor people, it's the best publicity, you know, and it's happened to us a few times, and it's just always worked out in our advantage, thankfully.
Yeah, I think, like, in terms of people trying to, like, not get on board with us at the start, I think, like, a lot of mainstream politicians don't like the way we approach the past, and we approach it with sort of lightheartedness, and it means of, like, kind of taking a sting out of it and bringing comedy to it. They want us to treat it the way they treat it, with seriousness, and we have to be very serious about everything. And this is black and white, and this is sectarianism. You can't talk about that there. But the reality is, on the ground, when we meet young Protestants or loyalists or whatever they want to call themselves, like, we have the crack and we take the piss out of each other, and that's a way for us to connect. And you see it in the movie with Makara and Georgia, the two characters, how they use the kind of the sectarianism of the past as a means to kind of bond each other and have a laugh. And I think that's why a lot of people, they weren't ready for that there. They weren't ready to have a laugh about it. But that's the way forward for this generation going forward, is to have, you know, to have these jokes, to have to make to crack a few jokes about the past, because it takes the sting away. And like, I spent the day on the Sandy Row, the 12th of July, watching the marches. A friend of ours was getting a video, and some young fellas who were celebrating started singing Carta, our first song, KNEECAP song, which is in Irish. And like, the first thing they said to me was like, "What are you doing behind enemy lines?" And they were just taking the piss, and I took the piss out of them for being orange bastards, and they took the piss out of me for being a Pope-loving bastard. And then they gave me a ball of Buckfast and we shared it, and it was class. I gave them a guest list for the gig. Don't know if they ever made it, but hopefully they did.
People are afraid to kind of not agree on things, and that's a big point. You know, like, you're allowed to have variant beliefs and stuff, but still get on with each other. You know, like, we're Celtic or Rangers. You know, Celtic, of course.
Celtic, of course, but also Rangers.
But also, the reason I think that a lot of people did try and quieten us at the start is because we are a band that is, as he said, openly talking about the past in a way that's comical, in a way that's actually trying to, you know, unite working class people. And I feel like if we're going to talk openly about the past. There's a lot of crimes that need to be answered for from the government, and I feel like that's something that they aren't willing to concede on yet.
On the kind of normalization of the different cultures and that kind of thing, it's striking not only in the north but in the south as well, how this kind of mentality of the older generations are trying to keep a level of sincerity and solemnity around the Troubles and around partition and all these kinds of things. You see it most with yourselves, you see it with the Wolf Tones as well, right? Like, what did they do at EP? Like 50, 60,000 people on the main stage, you know? And then like all the reception of that is, of course, these people don't know their history, it's disgusting, how are you welcoming people in, you know? But do you think it's an aspect of fear of the established order, in whether it's the Free State, whether it's in the 6 counties, that once you start to bridge that divide, like I think there's a quote in the film with Georgia and Iran where Iran says orange and green makes brown, you know, it's this deeply ingrained thing that you cannot have a unity between cultures or like an acceptance of cultures. You just need to live separately. So what do you make of like how you come up against this kind of this wall every time that you try and like normalize things?
I mean, like sectarianism was created by the government in order to create a divide between the Catholics and the Protestants up north. There was like, I mean, there's stories of like his granny talking about that, you know, she remembers years ago that the Orange Marches would come up the Republican area, or not even Republican, the Falls Road, the Catholic areas, and they would all join in the back, and it was all fun and games. It was just a sharing of cultures. And then what happened was apparently the dockers and all the sort of working class, like the workers became, like the workers' unions became very, very strong in Belfast, and obviously they were threatening the state because they wanted to be paid properly. And essentially what happened was they started stoking this divide, the state, of how could you join together, you're a Catholic, you're Protestant, you're so different, all these things that people never believed, and the government created in order to split the workers' unions. So this isn't something that was deeply ingrained in us for thousands of years or whatever. This was a government created, whatever way you want to call it, division amongst us.
These systems of division, similar to racism, they're all the same. You see it now with what's happening with refugees, etc. on the ground. People don't give a fuck, but there's other people orchestrating it because they want divide and they want to cause chaos and trouble because it suits their agenda. And the same as sectarianism. Like my granny used to hang about with the Orange Order and march with them. She wasn't allowed to join them because they won't let Catholics in yet. But
still won't.
Hopefully,
we're working on that.
We're trying to get a petition saying, trying to get the Orange Order to let us in, because I would love to have a 3-day street party.
A wee sexy bowler hat and sash, and a wee tash.
And a flute.
It'd look well on top of that as well, wouldn't it?
Bowler hat.
Yeah, and like, why not? Hopefully they let us in soon enough when we can all march about the place.
Because I was in Belfast for the 12th there last month, and we were voxing on the main streets, and at one point I'd stopped this Orangeman, must have been 70 years old, chatting away to him while the march was stopped. March kept on going. He was like, I really have to go. I was like, can I walk with you? And for a second he was like, yeah, go on then, go on then.
But just this once.
Just this once. Mark him. See where he goes now afterwards. But it's like, it's interesting that, isn't it, that even because the new generations don't hold these things in such a tense regard, that it kind of breaks down the barrier for the older generation in a way as well. You know?
And you can see, like, obviously the people in the older generation lived through a lot of this stuff and a lot of this trauma, and they carry that still, and it's hard to break those memories. You know, obviously we feel for that, you know, but it's not going to be the older generation that take the country forward. You know, it's the newer people coming through, and they're the ones who are able to kind of heal it and try and move past everything, you know. In a generation's time, all the people who lived through that will be gone, and the people who's going to carry it forward are the people who are coming up now. You know, so
again, it's the people who are like kind of portraying that there's this fear that your identity will be corroded or will be diluted by either Gaelic culture or other people's culture from around the world, and that's this fear that's instilled in people, be it via racism or sectarianism. It's not the way it is. I think the more language, the more culture we have, the stronger it'll make us all, and the richer we'll be, and the better food we'll have. Because if it was only Irish people living in Ireland, what will we be eating for takeaways? Just literally chips all day.
We're just eating spuds all the time. Sometimes you want to have spuds with a wee bit of spice on it. Or champ.
We'll probably have fucking potato diabetes or something, or whatever you get off it.
With obviously the film coming out, you've also got, you played at Glastonbury there recently, you're playing Reading this weekend. It's not all Irish people that are going to these gigs, you know.
Hopefully not.
Well, at one time or another, say 2-3 years ago, you might have had a hefty portion of an English crowd being immigrants from Ireland that are coming there. Do you know what I mean? But nowadays it's far changed, you know. It's definitely not a majority of, or I don't know, maybe there is a majority of English people.
A few generations back maybe, but further away, yeah.
But what do you think of that English audiences are starting to consume your art and relate with your art and kind of be emotionally and physically invested in what you do as a group, given that what you do as a group is the partition and the division of the country that they live in, you know?
Yeah. I mean, if the North stays, the North goes. I think most people in England probably don't care. Like, when it comes to music, if the music's good, people want to have a bit of crack, I think they're going to enjoy it. And I think nowadays people are a bit more conscious of the colonial history of England, so they're a bit more willing to accept different perspectives and what happened and have a bit of crack about it. And like also, like, I mean, look at the royal family, the last 20 years, like what they've been up to. Dodgy stuff altogether.
For a lot longer than 20 years.
More than 20 years, I meant 2 fucking million years.
The fact that English people are coming to our gigs now and paying, it's they're unwillingly kind of paying back reparations.
Fuck.
You know, so take that as well.
It's fucking English punters.
Yeah.
So
we've
secretly got them paying reparations.
So you're happy for them to come along just so we can... Yes. Well, you're going to give all the money then
give us all the spuds back as you took from the farming. Send all the food back.
Give us all our forests back.
Too late for that.
Cromwell needs to go over and plant all the trees again in Derry.
Another aspect of the film is when you start to take off in Belfast and you see like individuals being motivated to learn the language, to recognise that actually it is an injustice that you're living on the island of Ireland, you can't speak your native tongue. And you ended up from the beginning until now to be this kind of this cultural force within the new generation to kind of reconnect with your roots, reconnect with what being Irish means to you, whether you're orange or whether you're green. How do you feel about that being such a significant part of the transformation of what being Irish means to young people?
I mean, I suppose like we've always talked about how the language has always been cool to us. They've always spoken in the Gaeltacht for a long time. We are here to represent the language in an urban setting, and this revival in the city of young people speaking it. That's always something we wanted to do, is to represent the young people in the city to speak the language that not many people know about, and that's something that we've always prided ourselves on. Yeah, second language. But like I got a message of like an old friend the other day saying like she's going to send her daughter to school soon, and she wasn't sure like what school to send her to, and she doesn't speak Irish herself. But after seeing the movie, she's going to send her daughter to an Irish school. And like, I mean, if there's a few hundred people who see the movie and end up sending their kids to the Irish school because of that, that's a massive win for us. Yeah,
and we were in Madrid as well, walking through the airport, and there was this fella dressed top to toe in Rangers gear. He had a Rangers bucket hat at the top, the shorts, the full kit wanker.
The socks, the whole lot.
And he spied that he had an Irish passport. And we were like, whoa, what's going on here? And we get chatting, I had the crack with him, and we had a wee bit of banter, slagged him and all, and then we put a picture up on the socials, and he was getting roasted from the people in his own community, you know, people sending him threats and stuff and telling him he wasn't welcome back in the bar. So there is that animosity, but the fact that like he's got the choice to have an Irish passport or a British passport, that's the thing. No, you can choose whatever you want. If you're living in Ireland, you've got the right to be Irish, you know.
Yeah, but if you want to get kidnapped in the Middle East, probably want to have an Irish passport.
Just for an English audience, it might be good to tell them why Irish people don't speak Irish on a day-to-day basis.
the penal laws.
Colonialism.
800 years of colonialism. Now the penal laws, it was outlawed to speak Irish then, and obviously what happened was the English invasion came from the east, and the east was where, you know, all the best land in Ireland was for growing crops. So what happened was they pushed all the Irish speakers or all the natives to the west of Ireland, which is all very rocky and it's very hard to grow crops and stuff. So to hell or to Connacht, so they put them over to the west of Ireland, and that's why the Gaeltacht areas are all around the west, and that's why the Irish language stayed alive there. So there is still like families and still areas of Ireland that speak Irish. So they had a good crack at getting rid of it, and they obviously failed. So it's because of these families in the west of Ireland, like we have to thank them that we were ever given the opportunity to learn this language, to get involved with our culture that was driven to almost extinction.
And like the number one on the to-do list of colonialism is the wipe out of people's language, because it takes away their identity, it takes away their meaning, their connection to the land, connection to the place they come from. And then that's a people that you can conquer. You can tax them, you can make them, degrade them, make them feel like their language isn't any use, it's not the way forward, it's not progressive. And that's the after effect of colonialism. That's what the effect we still have today, especially down south. You see it, that people go to school for 14 years and can't really speak Irish. If I went and studied French for 14 years, I would expect a certain level of Irish. So there's something else. Oh, fuck a French. Probably more. Probably actually that's what's going wrong here. I need to teach French.
And then you just learn Irish by accident.
But like this is a fact that happens after colonialism, and like that's probably the worst thing they've done to the Irish people, is to make them feel like that there is no value in Irish because it's not valuable in the global market or in capitalism. But hopefully now young people are seeing that there is an intrinsic value to the language and something that can't be taken away from them, and something that maybe you won't go to the Silicon Valley and speak Irish, but that's fine. You know,
might now after the film.
You might now after the film.
I think it's important as well for people to question their beliefs. So you're obviously growing up and you're just taught what you're taught in school and by your parents and stuff, and a lot of the history books taught the colonial history, especially in England and in the north as well, and so people just take that verbatim. You know, they don't question it. So it's time for people to start questioning the role that the empire had in colonization around the world, and how it bred a lot of this animosity that you see. You know, but just by questioning their beliefs and seeing that there's another side of the history, the history of the oppressed people as well. I think that's an important thing.
On the animosity that we see today, there is obviously a couple of weeks ago there was the riots and the vandalism and this kind of thing, and it spread, of course, over to Belfast, where it was marketed by far right people in the south as this coming together of communities, and the lads with the Union Jacks and whatever it might be in the north also saying the same thing of a coming together of communities, completely misinterpreting that it was Free Staters going up to the north. By and large, it was Free Staters going up to the north flying the Irish flag. What does it say that supposed patriot organisations are so open to joining forces with groups that are historically opposed and actually want to eradicate what it means to be Irish in the 6 counties? What does it say that the far right in the south want to join forces with them to kind of vandalise and be xenophobic and be hateful towards other communities?
I think it's very clear the hypocrisy of it all. Like, I mean, we always talk about, from these marches have started in Belfast, of like people coming up. Obviously, people had this idea around the world that it was people from Belfast that were out marching, and I'm sure there was. But the ones with the one with the Irish flags, they were all coming up from Dublin. And we always talk about, you know, where was this influx of people from Dublin coming up with the tricolour during the Troubles? Like, we never seen anybody from Dublin up helping it. Not that many. But they're so willing to jump up now because they have this joined hatred of immigration, which is very ironic again for Irish people to be worried about immigration, considering we're probably the biggest immigrants in the world. So I think it's very, very hypocritical.
Yeah, and obviously a couple of weeks ago you saw that they were organising, the far right was organising a protest, and there was about 200 of them, and on the other side, in the counter-protest, there was 15,000. So it just shows the numbers, and it shows how ridiculous it is. It's not representative of our communities. It's not what we want.
Yeah, the news is always going to focus on the bad stuff, So obviously the media is always seeing all these far right marches, and they're giving them more fire than what they actually deserve, because there's a lot more of us than there is them, and Belfast proved it.
Yeah, I think it's misinformation. It's down to a lot of it. They're worried, like, I've seen a lot of almost down south are worried about like the dilution of Irish culture and all that stuff. But like when there was actual like no protection for the Irish language, when there was no legislation and we were out marching in the streets, never seen any of them fellas who came up for the latest protest down in Belfast protesting for Irish language rights. Something that was directly affecting the dilution of Irish culture and of Irish language, and you'll see them there. So they just use this as a farce, as a cover for their own agendas. And as he was saying, there's 15,000 out in the streets, so they're very much outnumbered, and probably anyone over 60 should be banned from Facebook, because I think they can't fucking tell the difference between fact and fiction anymore. They see a website called www.upsidedown.treehouse.com, and then they're like, fuck, do you see this crazy fact about fucking the great takeover of the world? And it has about 5 views on the video. I'm like,
seems legit.
Seems legit. Got the blue tick now because he's fucking paid for it.
And just finally, you yourselves are obviously big activists for the Irish language, but more than that, you have, when you're at Glastonbury, whether you're at EP, things like that, the big spectacle has been your messaging around Palestine. In Electric Picnic, it was about the use of Shannon Airport for Israeli arms and this kind of thing. Similar in Glastonbury. Just how important is the Palestinian cause to you as artists and as activists on the whole?
It's something that goes back a long time in Belfast. Like, I mean, if you go ever, I'm always saying, if you ever go up the Falls Road in West Belfast, you'll see more Palestinian flags than Irish flags. And I feel like it's really important, down to the fact of obviously 800 years of colonialism, we kind of understand and have solidarity with oppressed people around the world. And I feel like we're always on the right side of history, the Irish, until this far right stuff that's been happening recently, which I didn't think we were ever going to drop to. But it's something that's very close to our hearts. Obviously, we've been raising money for the Ada refugee camp for years. It was something like his brother started a gym in the refugee camp there a few years ago, and we done a couple of fundraisers with other bands in Cork and in Belfast. It was just something, you know, productive and active we could do, you know, because obviously people are raising money in the charity and you don't really see where it's going. But his brother had just built a gym in Cork and knew step by step how to do it. So he was like, I'm going to raise the money, I'm going to do that, something beneficial for people there. And yeah, this is something that's been like on our minds long before October 7th, and we're just going to use whatever platform we have to sort of speak out about it. And whatever it is, if it changes one person's mind or if it makes somebody read into it a bit more and question basically what's being said on CNN or whatever in America, then happy days.
Yeah, because obviously the mainstream media always portray it as mainstream media, they always portray it as kind of it's Israel versus Hamas. You know, they never actually mention the genocide, and especially when you're in America, people just kind of take that for read. You know that's the case, but we have a platform, and we have to use that platform to kind of do a counter narrative of what's actually happening there, and it's just a wiping out of the people. They bombed another school the other day. Hospitals are being blown up.
I don't think it's a controversial thing to talk about.
Like, you cannot defend it anymore. You couldn't have defended it from the start, and it's just gone too far now, and it needs to stop.
Like we know in Ireland the importance of solidarity and how that makes people feel seen, that there's people listening. When the Choctaw people sent money to the Irish people during the so-called famine, they sent over like the equivalent of 1.5 million. You know, it made the Irish people feel like there was someone listening. And obviously, once upon a time, there was a man called Nelson Mandela who was deemed a terrorist, and he was demonised all around the world, in America, by Maggie Thatcher, by England. And now he's on the other side of that. He's seen as a hero, and he has a statue in Parliament Square, and everything changes. So history's repeating itself. And there'll be one day now when they'll look back on Palestine and they'll see it differently, and they'll see who the real bad people are here and where I went wrong. So we just want to make sure we're on the right side of history, and we can do what we can to use our platform to raise awareness and keep Palestine in people's minds.
Dead on. KNEECAP the film out now. Anything else to plug, lads?
Tour coming up.
Tour in November in England, Scotland, Wales. A couple of American shows.
That's
pretty much
tour
it.
coming up in September as well, and then we have an Australian tour coming up in March.
All the tickets are flying out, so it's one of them ones.
Yeah,
Just make it on it.
London sold out already.
Yep, two London shows.
Come down, have a biggie.
SSE Arena in Belfast in December, Cork in December, Killarney.
Yeah, it's all on the website.
Well, I'll go for a boogie woogie, but if you want to save the Irish language, hop on our website, www.kneecap.ie, and buy some merch.
It's for your country.
Thank you very much.
Cheers.
Cheers.